Hey y'all, welcome back for Daily Decolonizing. We are continuing to look into the mental health system here in the United States, decolonize from it, and also remove stigma from individualization to, let's talk about what the system is really doing, okay? Today we have 3 prompts, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about one of them, okay? Have I ever heard of trauma-informed care? What do I know about Big Pharma? And do I know what the DSM is and how it was formed? The DSM, that's what we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about, is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And it has been issued, it was initially written up in 1952. Okay, this is the DSM-1, and then there has been a pretty steady growth of the DSM with revisions and new copies and more mental disorders until 2013 when the DSM-5 came out. So I want to list all of the dates that the DSMs came out. One thing I am missing from this list is how many additional mental disorders came with each revision. I don't have that information, but Google does if you're interested. All right, so 1952, the DSM-1, 1968, the DSM-2, so that's right. Okay, so let's think about World War II is over, and that's the 1952. Shortly after World War II is over. 1968, we know that's the Civil Rights era. Okay, 1980, we know yesterday we talked about Reaganomics and we talked about the Mental Health Act that JFK put in, and that was actually in 1963. So that happened before the second DSM. All right, then 1980 and then 1987, the DSM-3 was revised to add a couple things. And then 1994 was the DSM-4. 2000 was the DSM-TR, and then in 2013 was the DSM-5. All right. I got my master's degree in this. This is my area of expertise, and I want to say a few things. I also have, if you go to my profile after this video, one of my pinned videos is the timeline that I'm reading off of. I put together a giant timeline. It's about 23 pages of information looking at the history. It starts in, 1200 something? Oh, no, it starts in 400 BC, and it goes until, 2016. So I mapped out what happened and how mental health has been used as social control throughout history. And what we're dealing with now. The reason I asked the prompt about what do I know about Big Pharma is because the relationship between Big Pharma and the DSM is absolutely apparent. They grew together. Now, the couple of things I want to talk about is when the APA, so the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, was formed in 1844. And to give you context of that time period, Harriet Tubman escaped enslavement in 1846, 2 years after the APA was formed. So that gives you an idea of who is the APA, okay? We know. They still have control, or they just got it back. Now, the APA, the way that the DSM was put together was through a democratic process in which psychiatrists and other physicians and other people of power, i.e. pharma tech, right? People who benefit from the pharmaceutical industry came together for roundtables, and what they did was they talked about certain behaviors, right? That's the process of pathologizing. And they took a vote. What behaviors constitutes this, right? And that's how they put together the DSM. Okay, you can pick up any DSM. I highly recommend picking up the DSM-1. You can go to your local library. Usually they have them on, you have to you can't check them out, but you can look at them in the library. Anyway, the first DSM goes through a lot of that. I used to have PDFs, but that was on my old computer. I should get those again. I forgot about those. There are PDFs available as well. Let's see if we can find one right now. PDF of DSM 1. Yes. Oh, the Army has it in their archive. Interesting. Not really. That makes sense. Okay, so anyway, in the 1950s, right after World War II, again, if you want to look through everything, go to the timeline, because what that timeline also talks about is how social movements impacted the expansion of the DSM, using mental illness as social control. We know this from the olden days when women used to have an orgasm and they called it hysteria, right? There was a lack of understanding of the female anatomy, and it was individualized and pathologized back on women instead of learning about how the clit works, right? We understand that they still don't know what that does, right? It's crazy. So anyway, I'm getting a little off topic. I usually save this shit for you too. But anyway, 1950s, the antipsychotic drugs are introduced. They started with Thorazine. We talked about Thorazine yesterday when we were talking about the deinstitutionalization. Thorazine is given widely in prisons as well, and there's a street word for it called the Thorazine shuffle. It kind of makes people go, they get disconnected, right? They're easily able to be controlled, right? Take it for what you will. Again, this is decolonizing. This is probably not the foundation that you're familiar with, but this is why we're talking about it. Because for as long as these systems have been, like I said, this goes back to 400 BC, that mental health and mental illness has been used to categorize, right? And let's look at our stages of genocide. Classification is number one, okay? Classification, people have been classified as having mental illnesses. They've been labeled, right? There's an aspect of dehumanization. Of course there's discrimination, right? There's organizing around this. The stages of genocide within the mental health system is what forms the system in which people are used, controlled, incarcerated, criminalized. If you would like more information on this, I have written a thesis. You can look at that timeline. That's a lot of the research that I used for my thesis. If you'd like any other additional information, like I said, this is my passion, my area of expertise. I will share the information with you willingly. Just hit me up. Let me know if you want it. But I highly suggest looking into the ways in which these things exist, and the relationship between control, social control, the relationship of social movements, and the relationship of big pharma. And again, it's in that timeline. There's a lot missing. So if you have any other points from struggles that you're familiar with, let me know. All right? Have a good one.